I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you've maybe heard about it, but it looks like wall running may be coming in the next Call of Duty game. You see, this week we got a leak inside of Black Ops 6, and that leak was game files for wall running, and someone found a way to get into a game and actually play Black Ops 6 with wall running turned on. And it looked super akin to what we saw with Black Ops 3, almost the exact same style movement. Now, I have played Call of Duty for over 2 decades at this point, and with the various iterations of the game, we've had so many different movement mechanics. We've had bunny hopping, we've had sliding, we've had slide canceling, we had sprint, we've had tack sprint, we had wall running, boost jumps, exo jumps. We've had it all, but one thing we haven't had is me making a video on the evolution and how the movement has changed as a whole through the decades of Call of Duty. And that is exactly what this video is going to be. A look back at where movement started in Call of Duty and where it is now. And it has changed drastically many times in ways that I completely forgot. From boots on the ground simplicity to jetpack insanity, Call of Duty has seen it all. So in this video, we are breaking down the evolution of the movement mechanics in every Call of Duty game. How it started, how they peaked, and how they might have gone too far. Or depending on the person, not far enough. The classic era. This is where Call of Duty began, and with the classic Call of Duty, specifically looking at Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, movement was grounded. Literally, there was no sprinting and really no vaulting, just walking, crouching, going prone, and jumping. And that was the very first mechanic from the very beginning that was actually abused. It was called bunny hopping, and this can be seen in many other first-person shooters. And that was really the only mechanic that was in the game that could be abused to kind of make it easier for you in a given gunfight. But then came Call of Duty 4 and everything changed. A lot changed with Call of Duty 4. Classes were added in, kill streaks, kill cams, but one thing when it came to movement that would remain in every single Call of Duty game after this was simple. It was sprinting. It was introduced to the game and it was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, you could close the gaps, flank enemies, and reposition with speeds that were never seen before in a Call of Duty game. This shift in movement was absolutely revolutionary. And really, it was only the first time where we would get to see the fluidity that the movement in Call of Duty could truly be. Now, there were things put into the game like extreme conditioning, for example, in Call of Duty 4, which would double the amount of sprint that a player would have and double the duration thus-wise. And essentially, all you need to know about Call of Duty World of War is it was the exact same movement as Call of Duty 4, like literally the exact same. Extreme conditioning was still in the game. Pretty much copy and paste. Now, many people consider the golden era of Call of Duty in different times, but I think the most people, it kind of starts with Modern Warfare 2. When it comes to this game, essentially they took the movement from the previous games and just doubled down. Movement was slightly faster, weapons felt a little bit lighter, you could climb objects a little bit faster, and it was just a tiny bit more vertical, but not a lot. You see, with Modern Warfare 2, they took the Call of Duty 4 movement and just doubled down on a couple things. First of all, they added the lightweight perk, which allowed a constant mobility multiplier of 1.07 times. So you moved a little bit faster. And then there was Marathon, which didn't just give extra sprint, but unlimited sprint duration. But things would change with Call of Duty Black Ops, because for the first time since Call of Duty 4, a new movement mechanic would be set in place, known as the dive, or dive to prone, or as I like to call it, and I think everyone else likes to call it, the Dolphin Dive. And this took the world by storm as people would get clips of them diving out windows, shooting their weapons, things along these lines, and it would just add another option to things that you could do within the game. But again, the rest stayed the exact same. Now, a lot of people don't know why dolphin diving was actually added into the game, and that's because there is another mechanic in the game that we had yet to talk about, and that is a little thing called drop shotting. This was something people would do instead of bunny hopping, where instead of just jumping around and going vertical, you would literally go prone as you got into a gunfight, laying down, making your target more difficult to shoot at. When games had too fast of animations, you would drop immediately to the ground and have a huge advantage. So dolphin diving was inserted into the game to remove that ability, because instead of dropping to the ground, you would dive with the inability to shoot right away. So hence why from game to game, this drop shotting ability would change. To this day, drop shotting is still in the game. However, diving makes it a lot more difficult. Moving into Modern Warfare 3, dolphin diving would be taken out, drop shotting would come back in, but all of the other movement mechanics, the slightly faster move speed, marathon would be replaced with extreme conditioning. Just the name would change, everything else was the same. But up until this point, the speed at which you would move in game was based upon the weight of your primary weapon when you spawned in. So if you spawned in with an LMG, you would move slower than if you spawned in with an SMG, for example. However, within Modern Warfare 3, there was overkill, and you could use two different weapons, and your speed would be based on whatever the heavier weapon you spawned in with. So if you spawned in with an SMG and an LMG, your movement speed would be that akin to an LMG. But this would change forever with Black Ops 2. See, Black Ops 2 would add a little thing where your speed of movement would be based off of the weapon that you were holding. This is what every Call of Duty game would use from here on out. Now, some other things that would change within this game is, once again, they would return with the dolphin dive. That was pretty much it though. Also, you would move 2% faster than any other weapon with a combat knife or ballistic knife out. And again, this is something that we see even to this day within Black Ops 6. Now, some people may not consider this a golden age era Call of Duty, but Call of Duty Ghost, I am lumping this in here because Call of Duty Ghost actually added one of the most favorited mechanics amongst every person who plays. And that is a little thing called sliding. Sliding was introduced back in Call of Duty Ghost, and a lot of players really forget about that. It was the game that introduced this, and it would be in almost every single Call of Duty game after it. It is one of the mechanics akin to just simply sprinting that is most used by players today. Now, this mechanic would change slightly moving forward in future games, but we will get to that. However, that was not the only mechanic that Call of Duty Ghost introduced. They also introduced the leaning, where you could lean around corners. So the slide, yes, would speed up the game. The leaning, an incredibly fast time to kill of Ghost, ended up actually slowing the game down and making it more tactical. And then Call of Duty went the complete opposite direction. So things would get bonkers during this time. First off, in 2014, Advanced Warfare dropped and launched players quite literally into the sky. The introduction of exosuits also introduced boost jumps, dashes, air strafing. Movement was no longer two-dimensional, it was three-dimensional and maybe somehow even more. There was so many different mechanics, and also they introduced the fact that unlimited sprinting was available to all. You no longer needed to use a perk. This sped up the game drastically. Maps got bigger because, well, you could move across them much faster. No longer did you have to climb to a ladder to get to the second story of a building, just boost jump up there. If someone was shooting at you, strafe to the side, strafe backwards, and immediately you were in a different position for that gunfight. It was fast, it was wild. For many players, it was a little bit too much. Then Black Ops 3 perfected it. Wall running, power sliding, chaining movements together created more of a parkour-like experience with flow, as opposed to just boosting immediately up in the air. And for the first time since bunny hopping, there was a new mechanic that people could abuse. It was something called the J slide, and essentially what this would do is if you were to jump over an object and slide at the exact right moment, it would then boost you forward, making opening routes on maps more viable and you able to get into position faster than your enemies. Again, like bunny hopping, it was the first time something new like this would be introduced, but definitely not the last. Now, this movement was divisive. Some people absolutely loved it, specifically competitive players, but it was hated by purists and many casuals. And to this day, some people never want to see this movement return. But it did. It returned the next year with Infinite Warfare. It tried to continue with this type of momentum, but players were absolutely fatigued by it and just wanted to go back to boots on the ground. So that is exactly what happened. It hit a point and things needed to slow down. So enter Call of Duty World War II. It reintroduced boots on the ground gameplay. Sprinting, vaulting, sliding remained, but the pace was slower. The other thing that I have to point out is what was introduced here was a thing called mounting. Now this is kind of in the game before with bipod attachments, but this was more widespread and would continue to be for games to come. So what became of this was a game that was more methodical. And then 1 year later, everything would change with Modern Warfare 2019. First things first, tactical sprint was invented. This was a faster form of sprinting. It pulled your weapon up further, slow going into a gunfight. You would be a little bit slower, but you could get around the map way faster. But also, slide canceling was born. And just like if we asked your mom about you, they would say the same thing. It wasn't intended. It was a mistake. But players discovered you could chain slides and sprint together, breaking animations, speeding up movement in a way that was unintended, boosting the skill ceiling, and players had two thoughts on this. One, it shouldn't be in the game, it's a bug and should be removed, but other players said it actually improved the game. And in fact, it got to the point where the slide cancel was simply considered the meta. And this was further amplified when Warzone came out. Warzone took Call of Duty's movement and put it under the Battle Royale lens. Movement became about survival, slide canceling for speed, bunny hopping to win 1v1 fights, and loadouts tailored to mobility. Movement was king, and this was further amplified with Rebirth Island and Resurgence. It emphasized this super aggressive movement to the point where this became the meta. The only thing worse than running into this in the game is watching it on screen, so I'll do you a favor and remove it immediately. So this style of gameplay where stims would boost your movement, slide canceling was ever going and ever present, and on top of that things just got out of hand, would remain for quite a long time. Through Cold War, through Vanguard, and into our next era. This is why things got controversial, because when things got to that extreme that we just saw, Modern Warfare 2 in 2022 slowed things down again. Slide canceling was nerfed, bunny hopping was punished, and the community pushed back. Yeah, you may be shocked about that, but yeah, movement got so fast in the tactical era that the controversial presence slowed it down, and as we got there, people were angry. They wanted their slide canceling back. They wanted movement abilities that they could use to best their enemies. So, Modern Warfare 3 in 2023, movement returned in force. Slide canceling was back, reload canceling was reintroduced, and faster pacing made a comeback. And this is where the community became split between realism and arcade. So because of what the community asked for after Modern Warfare 2, Treyarch and Black Ops 6 went far towards the arcade direction, introducing something brand new by the name of Omni Movement, where you could sprint, tactical sprint or not, run, slide, and dive in every single direction. They implemented diving and sliding together in one for the first time. This is one thing that I do think will probably remain moving forward, but Omni Movement is ever controversial. Once again, making that argument between realism of gameplay as well as having a skill gap, adding an extra movement, and being too arcadey. And with rumors of the next Call of Duty game coming in and recent leaks, we have seen that wall running, the advanced movement, if you will, may be returning to the game once again. And that lends to the questions, what about boost jumps? What about pogo stick movement? What about strafing? What about air strafe? Are all of those things going to return? And what it comes down to is this. Movement in Call of Duty is more than just a mechanic. It is an identity. It is always and ever evolving. Whether we're sprinting through history, jetpacking across the sky, or slide canceling across Verdansk, one thing is clear: movement will always define the skill gap and define the game. And one thing is evidently clear: it is not yet done evolving.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're